In the previous video, we had a look at vehicles diametrically on the opposite sides of an intersection, both traveling straight and yet somehow landing up colliding. In this video, we're having a look at something that's far more common, namely one of the vehicles traveling straight through the intersection and the other vehicle turning across its path. In the following animations and real-life clips, to demonstrate each of the animations, we'll have a look at a number of reasons as to why this is so. In the first animation, we have two vehicles approaching each other. One vehicle's turning. The driver of the red vehicle is keeping his eye on the yellow vehicle and thinks that once this vehicle has turned, he's now safe to clear and cross over the intersection, but failing to take into account any other oncoming vehicles. The real-life clip demonstrates this exactly. Here we've got a driver waiting for an oncoming vehicle to turn. Once the vehicle has turned, the driver then thinks that it's clear for her to actually now turn across the intersection, but failing to take into account any other approaching vehicles coming into the intersection. In the next animation, we have two vehicles on opposite sides of the intersection. Once again, an approaching vehicle, this yellow vehicle. Both drivers have their eyes on this yellow vehicle to pass through the intersection before proceeding further. So they're not taking notice of each other. So that could be the one scenario. And so once this vehicle passes, they both cross the intersection. The one turns across the path of the other one. But notice that what often happens is that the driver, such as we have in the case of the green driver, he's on the far end of the intersection relative to where the yellow driver is traveling. So he anticipates his path across the intersection to synchronize with the yellow driver now passing through the intersection. So he doesn't wait till the yellow driver has passed through, but because he's further away, he times his path across the intersection slowly so that he's a little bit into the intersection once the yellow driver travels through the intersection. Now, it could also be that the driver of the red vehicle sees the green vehicle and assumes that this driver is simply going to turn and not cross straight over the intersection. So because of these variables, we have the following situation that arises. So there we go, they both collide, the one turning across the path of the other one going straight. And here we've got just a perfect clip to demonstrate this point. You'll see the cameras going straight across the intersection. Both are waiting for this vehicle to pass at right angles, perhaps not noticing each other. But now notice the camera sort of synchronizes his timing across the intersection so that he's partway across, so that once a vehicle has proceeded out of the intersection, the driver on the other side now turns into his path. In the next animation, this is the most common of all the scenarios where we have a vehicle that is waiting to turn through the intersection, another vehicle also likewise waiting to turn in the opposite direction, both turning to their left. But because of the presence of the yellow vehicle, the green vehicle is obscured from the red driver and vice versa. The red vehicle is obscured from the driver of the green vehicle because of this yellow vehicle that exists in between the line of sight of both of these vehicles. Now, because this is such a common scenario, I've actually created a second animation to demonstrate this. And what we'll see taking place here is something that happens frequently. And you'll see by the number of clips that are included in the montage section to follow this, just how prevalent this situation is. So what we have here are a number of vehicles. Once again, the driver of the red vehicle entering the intersection to turn to his left. We've got the driver of the green vehicle proceeding straight. The yellow vehicle in between the two vehicles and obscuring the view of each from the other. But notice that the driver of the yellow vehicle waits in the intersection, so it's not as though he approaches and then turns, then allowing the driver of the red vehicle to see directly the green vehicle. But what happens in this situation is that this driver is waiting for an oncoming vehicle. So here we have another vehicle passing through the intersection. This driver is waiting for that vehicle to pass, so stops in the intersection, and because he stopped, his presence there obscures the line of sight of the green driver from the red vehicle and the red driver from the green vehicle. Yeah, a perfect clip to demonstrate this. This driver is waiting for these oncoming vehicles to pass. We've got the camera going straight, and on the other side of this vehicle is now another driver waiting to turn to his left. But they're obscured from each other, and so we see that they end up colliding. So a very common scenario. So as you go through the montage section, keep an eye out for this, just to impress on your mind how common this situation is, so that you well equipped and prepared for such a situation arising in your day-to-day travels. In the next animation, this is one of those things which boggles the mind. So there's nothing obscuring the line of sight of each driver from the other. The driver of the red vehicle cannot be distracted by any other vehicles on the road, motorcyclists, cyclists, pedestrians. It's totally clear, an unimpeded line of sight to the green vehicle, and yet despite this, still crosses the path of the green vehicle, ends up colliding with it. So this situation can arise, and the point to take away from this is never to assume that other drivers will have seen you. So if you are the driver of the green vehicle, and because there's nothing blocking the line of sight, don't just assume that the driver of the other vehicle has seen you and will wait for you to pass. It could well be that the driver of this vehicle has a lot pressing on his mind, perhaps a lot of problems that are occupying his thoughts. And so although physically he can see this vehicle, but mentally he doesn't perceive the presence of this vehicle because he's so occupied with his thoughts. And so that could well be the situation as to why such a scenario arises. So just be aware of that. Here we have the driver of this vehicle opposite, wanting to turn, nothing impeding the visibility of the camera coming across straight along this route, and yet despite that, still turns across the path of the camera. In this last clip, we have a situation where the driver of the red vehicle does see the green vehicle, but is in a bit of a haste, or just is prepared to take a risk and quickly try and cross the intersection before the green vehicle arrives, but miscalculates his timing, and so lands up colliding with the oncoming vehicle. So be cautious of those who may give signs of being impatient or hasty and trying to quickly take a gap, but not calculating that correctly, as we see in this real life clip. Please like, subscribe, and get notified.